So, as we kind of get into it,
A
I'm gonna,
harmony. Ooh.
let's see. So, my coming of witch tale. So, like I said in the beginning, um, I kind of came across this term from a podcast, and I believe it was the Millennial Pagan Pod, I think, um, which overall is a great podcast. I highly recommend. I'm not quite that pale, but I am very warm toned. No, that's more olive toned. I'm definitely very peaky. Um, and so, always as a kid, I grew up not far from Salem, Massachusetts. So I was always really interested in going down there. Still do, even as an adult. And so, kind of grew up as typical witch kids, and went from playing in the yard making like potions out of twigs and sticks, and there's this really great story that my dad likes to tell, of this one time where I tried making him breakfast and I was treating it like a potion, and I was like 6 or 7, so I don't know why they let me use the stove on my own, but they did. So I made my dad like eggs, hot sauce, like all the things that he loves, and he's like, I would have eaten it too if you didn't add the coffee grounds on top, because I was like, Dad loves coffee, so obviously I have to add coffee grounds, um, which as an adult we just kind of laugh about, but it's so always had that kind of fascination with that kind of stuff, was always kind of that kid, and um, went through phases of being really interested in Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, and those types. I got this hair specifically because I think it's kind of me. My hair is definitely not that voluminous, but it's kind of what I typically go for. It's usually like in a clip in the back, which I'm trying to scroll. You can see it's kind of just like in a half up, half down kind of deal. So, I get rid of the accessories and stuff too. And so, but I grew up going to like a Protestant church because my parents were, and um, that's just kind of how I was raised. But I never really enjoyed it. Um, Always kind of thought that just wasn't my vibe. And so, oh, teeth. Oh, jeez, that is terrifying. Okay, my lips are not that. The nose is pretty accurate. Mine slopes down a little bit. But let's put some like preset lips just for now. And so kind of always like enjoyed that stuff. And so fast forward to my first job after graduate school, and my job was working at a university, and part of that position was to be on an on-call rotation. So if there's any type of emergency, a student needs to go to the hospital, or if there's like a facilities issue, or any of those things, I would get called and have to handle it. My eyes are green, not quite that green. I think that's a little bit closer. And so I was feeling really stuck at that job. And so I was like, okay, I know that like Christianity wasn't my deal. So I was like, let's try like going back to kind of my roots in a way of like the witchy kid with the crystals and all that kind of stuff. So I did some like meditating and stuff. Then this was near Halloween 2018, I think. And so did some meditating. I found some meditations on YouTube and things like that, like how to find your guides and things like that. So that's kind of how it started. And so I just kind of did this meditation, asked my guides for like signs and support and, things like that. And it was either like the next day or that same night. I can't remember, but it was Halloween. Like Halloween night, which is why I did the meditation. But I can't remember because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning when this all went down. I can't remember if it was considered like the night started on Halloween and then went into November 1st, or if it was like October 30th going into October 31st. Can't recall. But either way, Halloween was around that time. And so it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, like I said, and I get this on-call call. And one of the buildings on campus, because it was Halloween, there was a bunch of students just intoxicated and things, as students do, and they had ripped a sink off the wall. And the building was flooding. And so I had to go get facilities there, which took a lot of time, and we couldn't get the water to turn off. So we just had to like wait it out and keep people in their rooms. And like we were shoveling water away from student rooms, and it was a whole mess. And it was a super old building. And so like we found, because it was in a bathroom, so there's like drains and stuff. But the drains weren't working, like they were clogged. So the water wasn't going anywhere. It was just sitting there in the bathrooms and things. So, and it started leaking down the floors. So once we got facilities there, they turned the water off, which took some time for it to like go through the pipes, as it does. And then they thought they fixed it, and so they turned the water back on. Did not fix it. I do not have unibrow. Sometimes feels like I do with the peach fuzz, but I do not. And so I got a second call where I had to go back and do the whole thing over again with the water and the students. And luckily we didn't, like, there wasn't any damage to any like property, instead like student property, and we didn't have to relocate any students, which was great because there was no space to do that. And it was at this point like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I would wish my eyebrows looked that good, but they don't. But we're gonna go with it. We're gonna just say that's it. My ears are pretty small. I have pretty small ears, so we're gonna just make those smaller. I have very small ears. Oh, I accidentally made those bigger. Oops. So I flexed my time, so I came into work much later the next day. I should have just taken the whole day off, but it is what it is. And I do have gauges, so we'll put those in. And so I was like, I have to make sense of all this that happened. I also have my nose pierced. We'll do a little stud, because I have a stud here, and then we'll add the septum. Like we're just gonna go with this type of hoop. Oh, can I not have both? Okay. So we'll just do the septum, because I feel like you see that more. So I went to Google and I just started Googling like, I think it was like pagan deities of, I think I started with like mischief, because I was like, if this whole thing came up because there was a student felt like pranking the building and just like messing around, and they tore a sink off the wall. So I found Loki because I was familiar with that character, that deity, from previous work and all the Marvel movies and stuff like that. And so I was looking into that, and I was like, no, I've never really felt connected to Norse mythology all that much, so I just kind of like, it wasn't my jam. So I was kind of hitting a dead end, and so I just started writing down all the things about like themes of the night. So the mischief, the water. Oh, I forgot I downloaded this. It's cute. I don't wear a lot of makeup on the day-to-day, but I feel like we're kind of making like my witchy alter ego. So probably opacity a little bit, so it's a little bit more sheer, a little bit more my vibe. And so I just started writing all these things down, and so I was like, okay, if these are the thing that these kind of came up from, and I'm not connecting with Norse, so then I was like, okay, well, why don't I try looking into where my heritage is from? And I've done the Ancestry DNA kit, and we're very aware that we are German and we are Polish, and that's predominantly it. So I was like, okay, let's start there. For whatever reason, I was feeling more called to the Polish side, so I went with that first. So I was like, Polish deity of mischief. I don't think I really got much, so I switched around some of those search terms and decided to go with Slavic. So it's all kind of in that same area and may include some of the Germanic stuff as well to kind of maybe try to get a wholer picture, a bigger picture. And so that's where I came across Velis. And so I looked into him through like Britannica, and there's like a Slavic mythos like website that I found and things like that. And none of them had like photos or anything, just text. And I was like, this seems like I'm feeling something here. Like this could be it. Let's keep looking. So I decided to look up some depictions of him. And one of the depictions was of him with a bear, because he's also the like protector of forests and also like the underworld or the dead and like things like that. So when I saw this photo, this depiction of him with the bear, I got really intrigued, because I've always been really like into bears, and like in, I think it was like second or third grade, I did this really cool presentation, and I think it's still in like my parents' basement somewhere because it just looks so cool, where I made a TV where I had put like 2 broomsticks and it would like twist, so like a slide, and I did it on black bear. Like even back when I was a kid, I was like, bears are cool. Like I think I chose to do it. It was for like a science class where I had to pick an animal and do a presentation. So I picked a bear. And I also really enjoy like the idea of like shifters and things. Not so much werewolves, but like I read a lot of books about like bear shifters. Like that's always just been something that I have done. And so I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Okay. I am definitely chunkier than this. But probably not that. I would say that the muscle tone is probably still good too. But I feel like I have a little bit more definition in my waist. You know what? Good enough. Again, we're doing like my dream self. So I was like, oh, and then I saw this image, and it's the background of my phone still, and like it just really intrigued me, and I started going down this rabbit hole of all things like Velis, and I was like, I just kind of like, after reading everything, I just kind of like looked up at the ceiling. I was like, really? This was the message that you were trying, like this? I was so like peeved. It's like, you didn't have to be this present. You could have sent me a subtle sign and I probably would have picked up on it because I was asking for one. I was so mad because I didn't think that I would get like a mischievous guide to come through. But what I kind of gathered from it, from all the research that I was doing, was that he kind of helps me remind myself that, to not take things so seriously, and like when thinking about things in the grand scale. Um, so then I started looking into some other Slavic deities because I'd never heard of even the term of Slavic paganism up until then. I feel like I would wear something like that, especially in that color too. I wear a lot of like purples, burgundies, um, like greens. So we're gonna go with that for now, because I literally always wear jeans, even to work, when I should be dressing business casual. Where was I? So I started looking into more deities and more things, and every one that I was finding, I was feeling very connected with. Whether or not I ended up working with them later on, is a different story, but I felt like they all made sense to me. So I felt like that was my key to say, like, this is the path I belong in. Let's start making this fit me. Because some of the stuff that I was reading, because like that area, at that time, like it was very difficult to do research on and find primary sources, because like back in I wanted to say it was like 960 AD or so, like paganism was officially kind of like wiped out of that region, and Christianity had taken over. Like they took down all of their idols, and so people were really being very hush-hush, and that was even before like many people could read and write, and the printing press wasn't around, so like there is not primary sources to be seen or like relied on. So a lot of the stuff I was reading was, secondhand and things like that, and I found that folks, not all of them, but there are folks that prescribe to the same set of beliefs and practice as me, that use it as kind of analyze white supremacy. And I knew that that was not what I was into. Like that wasn't what I was getting from my research. It. So I wanted to make sure that I was making my practice my own and being very critical of where I got information from. So Britannica was a big one that I used a lot. If I was getting things from blog posts or things like that, I was taking it with a grain of salt. So I just want to make that very clear. Why are there not just high-waisted jeans? I guess we'll just go with these ones. So I started looking into some of the like Polish practices and like holidays and things like that, and I came across the what folks do over in Poland and some other countries as well in on the first day of spring, which is a drowning of Marzana or Marana, depending on, I think, pronunciation where you're from. But she is a deity of sickness, death. But as I was reading up on her, I just kind of felt like she was just very misunderstood. So she's another person or energy that I work with fairly frequently. So I've kind of changed up my practice with her a bit. So at the start of the spring, I don't drown her. I definitely see her presence as being, all about balance. There is a time for winter and, a time for spring and a time for crops to die in order for us to like replenish the earth and all that kind of stuff. It's very much of a cycle. So in the spring, I make her some like sleepy time tea, and let her know that, you know, her job is done. She can rest now. It's not her time. We don't need her right now. She can just take time for herself. And then during fall, I make her some coffee. And I, you know, essentially kind of wake her up. Be like, your time to shine, girl. Let's go. But then I did another meditation at some point where you kind of visualize who your spirit guide is, and you are walking down like this flight of stairs into the woods. And what I pictured was this younger woman with really dark long hair in kind of like a peasant dress in the woods. And when I found depictions of Marzana, it was exactly how I pictured. So it was just kind of confirmation for me then too. And then I was doing more in-depth research and found some sources that kind of described Marzana as part of like the Trinity, the Maiden Mother Crone archetype, where she's the maiden, and Baba Yaga is the crone. And I thought that was so interesting, and it really connected to me on that level, because, you know, Baba Yaga is such a prolific character in Slavic mythology. Like, she's everywhere. I even have a Baba Yaga tattoo now, which is funny because I tend to see Baba Yaga as kind of like your stereotypical like old German like grandmother, you know, the babushka in a way, or the Oma, who just like smacks you upside the head when you do something wrong, and it's just like, do better. Like, that's how I picture her. She's very direct, and also very misunderstood. I don't know what it is about me and connecting with deities that are just misunderstood, but it is what it is. I'll give myself a watch because I usually have my smartwatch on. It's a Fitbit. It's not like an Apple Watch or anything. I'm not that bougie. I feel like that's good for that tends to be my everyday. I'll probably do like maybe. Oh dear, that is a terrible look. I've been streaming for a while now overall, so I think I'll probably just leave it. I'll finish up the traits and stuff. So she auto-populated with loving the outdoors. That's great because that's one of the traits that the challenge recommends. And then so I'll probably, and I also love the outdoors. And let's see. So kind of in conclusion, I guess, I have been practicing Slavic folk magic and like kitchen witchery really full time since that night in 2018. Like, that whole interaction really just made me realize that this is what my practice and my beliefs are stemming from, and this is what I need to do, and it really has been really fulfilling for me. And so that's been kind of my story in a way. Like, it's still evolving. I'm still figuring things out. I'm currently working on my own Book of Shadows or grimoire, because I've just written things down in like diaries and journals over the years, just like as thoughts come in. Excuse me. And that's just, I'm trying to like really dig deep into what this practice means to me and what I'm socially awkward. Let's go with that. And let's go with the aspiration. I am a traditional Ravenclaw, so let's see. Let's do Nerd Brain because I feel like that's me. So it's still evolving. I'm still figuring things out.